Goodman. The top UN official for humanitarian affairs is traveling through the war-ravaged eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo today, where nearly 900 people have been killed and unknown numbers of women raped since the beginning of the year. After visiting a hospital, the UN Emergency Relief Coordinator, John Holmes, expressed his shock at the large number of rapes that continue to take place. According to the United Nations, tens of thousands of women in the Congo have been brutally raped as part of the ongoing war. Dr. Denis Mukwege is a Congolese gynecologist and the founder of one of the only hospitals that treats victims of rape and mutilation. He's been honored by the United Nations with a 2008 Prize for Human Rights for his tireless work at the Panzi Hospital that receives nearly 10 new patients every day. Dr. Mukwege has helped over 21,000 women in the past decade and was named African of the Year by a Nigerian newspaper last month. Dr. Mukwege is in the United States this month to raise awareness about the war on the women of the Democratic Republic of Congo. He's beginning a 5-city tour with Playwright activist Eve Ensler, the author of the Vagina Monologues, founder of V-Day, the global movement to end violence against women. They begin that tour today on Democracy Now! Last fall, Eve Ensler worked with UNICEF to organize events in 2 cities in the DRC where survivors of sexual violence publicly spoke out against violence and about their experiences for the first time. 7 women told their stories in front of community members and government and UN officials.
They took my husband and hit him and tied him and tortured him and took him I don't know where. They went and killed him wherever they had taken him. And then all 7 men raped me. Then the neighbors heard what happened and found me unconscious. They looked at me and saw all my insides outside of my body.
They started taking the clothes off my children, and I told them, please, excuse me, you can't do that. Instead of raping my children while I watch, just kill me first.
A woman is supposed to be respected. We are not objects. Women get pregnant and breastfeed you. How come you disrespect me today in public?
The authorities of this country, how do you look at this rape issue and remain silent?
We are suffering because of rape. Rape should stop. It must stop.
I am speaking so that women who are hiding and others who have AIDS can come out, so they can be taught how to live.
Excerpts from the women's testimonies last fall, courtesy of V-Day. I'm joined now here in the Firehouse studio by Dr. Mukwege and Eve Ensler. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Eve, talk about this tour, Pain to Power.
Well, I had the privilege and honor of meeting Dr. Mukwege about 2 years ago. I interviewed him at the bequest of OCHA, a UN agency, and I had known before there's some of the stories and some of the things that were going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo, but really it wasn't until I met him and talked to him and listened and heard the stories that I came to understand the severity of the situation. And since then, I've been 3 times to Panzi Hospital and to the Democratic Republic of Congo and really witnessed firsthand and heard the stories of women and spent a lot of time with Dr. Mukwege. And I felt if we could bring him here and we could travel America and we could go to universities and we could do small events and large events and all kinds of events, and this country could hear his voice and could hear directly from him the stories that were going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we might be able to shift conscience and really activate a movement here on the ground, which is already beginning to happen.
Dr. Mukwege, tell us how you got involved with this issue. Dr. Mukwege is being translated.
C'est une situation qui est particulièrement difficile.
It's a particularly difficult situation.
Depuis 10 ans,
for the past 10 years,
on s'est retrouvé qu'à l'hôpital on reçoit des femmes qui sont non seulement violées,
that are not only raped,
mais elles ont été torturées.
But have been tortured also.
Leur appareil génital a été littéralement
has been literally
détruit.
Destroyed.
Et ce sont souvent de jeunes personnes
and they're all often young.
Qui sont au début de leur vie pratique.
They're at the beginning of their
Et
youth.
dans la condition elle arrive dans une condition
and
où
they arrive in such a
les matières fécales, les urines,
where urines and fécals
de les prendre en charge.
Are coming out, and it's very hard to take
Mais,
them.
Je pense que si nous sommes là, c'est puisque aussi nous avons
we are here because we have hope.
Puisque le monde peut écouter.
And we have hope that the world can listen.
Qu'il est inadmissible.
It is unacceptable. It is unbearable
que les femmes soient traitées de cette
that women are treated this way.
Who is committing these crimes?
Qui commet ces crimes?
Ce sont des crimes qui sont commis par des groupes armés. Vous savez, depuis les 10 dernières années,
For the past 10 years, the Congo has been occupied by 7 armies.
Et chaque armée,
and each army,
chaque groupe armé,
each armed group,
y compris même les forces armées congolaises,
including the Congolese armed forces.
Chaque groupe commet ses propres
Each group commits its own atrocities.
Et je pense que c'est grave puisque finalement les femmes n'ont pas de recours.
Because women have no hope.
Qui sont supposés les protéger.
Even those who are supposed to protect her.
Elles sont en train de les abuser et les torturer.
Abuse and torture her.
Eve, you recently came back from Congo. Tell us about the Panzi Hospital.
Well, I want to say, too, that it's really important to remember that violence against women is not a particular African thing or a Congolese thing. We know it's happening in every country in the world, that 1 out of 3 women are violated. I think what's going on in the Congo, with a history rich in colonialism and genocide and rich in plunder, we know that the West this is essentially an economic war that is being fought on the bodies of women, that what we're seeing at Panzi Hospital, to me, is a kind of end of the world scenario. We're seeing hundreds and hundreds of women who are there, who have been raped, whose bodies have been ripped apart, who are incontinent, who can't hold their pee or poop because of the terrible things that have been done to them, the guns, the knives, the many penises, the many rapes that have been done to them. And we're seeing really essentially a country where this has been going on for 10 to 12 years with complete or close to complete indifference in the world. There have been some groups, obviously, that have, like Human Rights Watch, that have kept their eye on this. But for all intents and purposes, the world has been fairly indifferent. And I think for me, having spent a lot of time in the rape mines of the world, when I went to the DRC and I heard these stories, I saw what could happen everywhere in the world if we don't pay great attention to women's bodies, because it is really so extreme there, and there's been almost complete impunity there, that if we as a world do not develop a conscience and support the women there and have their backs and provide resources, but just really pay attention and start working through political channels to put pressures on the appropriate people, we will see the spread of this everywhere. We're already beginning to see the spread of it in places like Zimbabwe.
I wanted to ask about the deal that has just been reached on the Congolese rebel leader Laurent Nkunda, being reported that Rwandan officials promised this weekend to return him to his home country more than 2 weeks after the Rwandan military arrested him near the border. Let's start with you, Eve.
Well, I think arrest is a hopeful phrase. I think he's been taken out of the country. We don't know where he is. It could be a vacation for Nkunda in Rwanda at this point. What I'm very concerned about is the fact that Bosco is still there and he needs to be arrested as well. And
who is Bosco?
Under Nkunda. And what I'm more concerned about is that 6,000 troops have just been sent in, Rwanda's troops, who have been kind of unleashed on the country without any protection of the women. And I think Dr. Mukwege can speak to that, but it's incredibly dangerous.
Doesn't the U.S. support Kagame, the head of Rwanda, president?
Do you want to address
Dr. Mukwege?
Je pense que nous sommes très inquiets puisque nous savons ce que les militaires font.
We know what armed groups do.
Je pense que lorsque vous posez la question de savoir quelle est la protection
Your question is about the protection for
quelles sont les
women.
mesures qui sont
What measures have been
protéger les
taken
femmes.
to protect
Il n'y a
women?
pas de réponse.
There is no
Et je
answer.
pense que laisser des milliers de militaires
There's
entrer dans
thousands
la
of
forêt,
militaries.
il n'y a aucun témoin. Il n'y a
There
personne.
is no witness. There is nobody.
Moi, je me dis, toutes les femmes qui ont été violées,
I think all the
on a
women who have
soigné,
been
on a
raped
réparé,
and we have fixed them, we're going to find them again in the same situation in a few months. There are UN forces there. Why cannot they be associated to the situation for more transparency? I'm very worried because there are no witnesses to what is going on.
So what exactly has to happen, Dr. Mukwege?
Qu'est-ce qui doit se passer, docteur?
Moi, je pense que, pour le moment, je crois qu'il faut qu'il y ait une volonté.
There has to be a will, a decision.
C'est très bien.
It's very good that we arrested Nkunda.
Une action isolée.
But it's just one action.
Si c'est une action isolée,
it's one act isolated. And if it stays isolated, there would be another Nkunda.